Good afternoon, everyone. It is Tuesday, March the 17th, 2020. It is currently 3:14 p.m. Central Time. I am currently sitting in the back of the sanctuary here at Victory Baptist Church. The sanctuary is completely empty. I'm obviously live on the air for those listening to me live. Some of you may be listening to a recording of this posted at a later time. If you would like to listen to me when we're actually live on the air, you can email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, and I will explain how you can do that. I don't want to go through all of those details right now because it would really defeat what I want to accomplish in this live broadcast. I don't really want to talk about all of those other things. In fact, speaking of talking about other things, I don't know if you know it right now, but there is a lot of noise. There is so much noise right now within the culture. So much noise, talking back and forth, because we are in the middle of a global pandemic. The coronavirus, COVID-19. One news report after another news report after another news report after another news report. People are concerned. People are trying to gather information. People's lives are being turned upside down because of different restrictions and different things happening in different states and different cities across the country, around the world. Lives are being turned upside down. People are worried about where the next paycheck is going to come from. They're worried about, do they have enough things in their home to take care of their family? There is concern about the COVID-19 and, will they catch it and what are the symptoms? There is great concern. There is so much noise, so much talking about all of this. And then in the midst of this global pandemic, where there is all of this genuine concern about a virus that is spreading around the world and people continue to die and people continue to become infected with this virus, there is how can we say it, striving with one another, arguing with one another, fighting with one another, debating with one another. You have those saying, hey, this is no big deal. This is all a hoax. You don't need to worry about it. More people die of this, more people die of that. And then others are going, hey, wait a minute. You need to be more concerned. You need to care about other people. And then there's an argument about what is real, what isn't real, how serious it is, how serious it isn't. It's all a hoax. It's not a hoax. It's fake. It's not fake. This is unwarranted panic and, because of the mass media or then once if you can step away from all of that arguing and all of that striving and all of that debating, then you find those arguing about politics. This is a liberal plot to destroy Trump, and then you have the conservatives saying or you have the conservatives saying this is a liberal plot to destroy Trump, and you have liberals saying, the whole reason this is so bad is because Trump didn't do what he was supposed to do, and this is all Trump's fault. And so then you have everyone arguing and striving and debating with one another about politics. And then if you can take a step away from that, so you have the general concern, if you can finally say, okay, I've got to step back, guys, I got to get away from this discussion. Then you walk right back into a political argument, political striving, political debate, sounding like children on the playground. But if you can get away from all of that and you're like, where I'll turn to Christians, I'll turn to the church. And then what do you find there? More bickering, more arguing, more fighting. Should churches cancel? No, they shouldn't cancel. If you cancel, you're not spiritual. If you're concerned about this, you don't trust God. You should just go do what you want to do. Don't listen to the rules. Don't listen to all the discussion about social distancing and isolating yourself. Trust God. Don't listen to anyone. Do what you want. Your churches should meet. Because government can't tell you what to do. And then others are saying, no, government can. And people say, no, you're irresponsible. No, you're not godly. No, you don't trust God. And then you see Christians arguing and bickering and fighting. And there is just so much noise, so much striving. Now, as I got in my car to drive out here, when I first got in the car, I turned on the radio, and of course, no matter where I turned, they were Christian radio talking about COVID-19. And I understand that. I'm not condemning that. They're talking about it. Of course, they were dealing with all of these arguments. This people say this and this say this. I turned it to talk radio, and it was, liberals. It's all the liberals' fault. And I turned to sports radio. They were talking about, somewhere like, I don't know. This is crazy. They're shutting everything down. This is going to devastate. I don't know if it's warranted. And at some point, I just reached over and turned the radio off. Now, my drive out to my church is about 20 minutes. And I always take what I call the back way. If I was to come to Victory Baptist Church, which is located in Ocala, Texas, on Highway 8384, it kind of splits. And you can go to the right, and you'll come through Tuscola. Tuscola, Texas, a little small town, and then you'll leave Tuscola and come out to Ocala, and you'll find the church. If you don't kind of take to the right where the highway splits, and you continue to go straight, you kind of go out in the country, and then you finally turn to, I think it's a farm market road. You take a right, and then I don't know, it's 1.5 miles, 2 miles of this farm market road out in the country. There's basically nothing out there. And as I was driving down that road, I looked around. There was some cattle, grazing. I was looking at the cattle, and kind of a cloudy day, and I just pulled over and stopped the car. And I rolled the window down, and I turned off the engine, and I sat there for like 5 minutes. And it was complete silence other than the wind. I could hear the wind, silence. I think I may have heard a dog barking at one point, maybe a bird making a sound. It was just silence, and I just sat there. And as I sat there, it was like this whole new perspective, right? It's like if I'm sitting there out here in the middle of the country, it's like all of that noise just went away. You wouldn't even know sitting there that there's a global pandemic. You wouldn't even know that people are bickering. You wouldn't even know that people are arguing. It was just silence, stillness. There was no striving. There was no arguing. There was no debating. It was just stillness and silence. I finally started the car again, pulled up in the church parking lot, and as I got out of the car and I walked around to get ready to open the front door to the church, I just stood there again, and I was like, because Ocala, there's really nothing here, so it was once again there was just silence. Every once in a while, a car coming down the highway, you would hear the car, just nothing. In fact, listen to that. Nothing. Silence. You may be able to hear the cars on the highway going by every once in a while. You may hear that. But even listening to those cars drive by, it's just a car here or there. There's not many cars, and it's just like you just get this feeling everything is right in the world. There's not a problem. Now, I know that that's not a completely accurate perspective, but it at least gets you away from all the noise. It gets you away from all the arguing. It gets you away from all the debating. And as I sit here in this sanctuary of this church, there's a cross up in front of me, up behind my pulpit. And I just sit there and look at it and go, that's what the church should be offering right now, is, yes, we have to talk about the coronavirus here or there, but can we not just offer a clear, concise message about here's the reality of it, here's what we should do, and not be involved in arguing and debating and striving and mocking? It's like I've seen so many Christian, ministries, using this as an opportunity to mock people and mock what they call the unwarranted panic. No. I think it's time for something else. So when I came back here to this table that I'm sitting at the back of the sanctuary, and I hooked everything up, I was like, I want to kind of talk about this feeling. And The one verse that came to mind, and I know this may not be a 100% the right way to look at this, but you probably know, you've heard the verse, Psalm 46, verse 10. Psalm 46, verse 10, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth." Psalm 46, 10. "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth." Now, to be fair, Psalm 46:10, some believe that Psalm 46 verse 10 should be understood this way, that the "be still" here is probably addressed to the nations to stop their hostilities, which were ultimately directed against God. That's how some people interpret it. So there's definitely a historical setting there. There's definitely something we would have to determine exactly how we should apply that. But there is a principle, whether it's telling the nations to be still, stop your hostilities towards God, stop it, just be still. In fact, if you, after that command to be still, very important phrase there, Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. Whether it's telling the nations to stop, whoever it's telling to stop in its context, there's a principle there that be still, and as a result of the being still, the implication is be still and know that I am God. In order for them to truly understand that he is God, they needed to be still. Now, there is a famous quote. I think it's from Mother Teresa. I believe it's from Mother Teresa. Now, obviously, I do not agree with her theology. I'm not making any argument for her salvation or anything along those lines. I just want to make sure I at least give the quote to who I believe it's from. I believe it's from Mother Teresa. I cannot verify that. I have the quote and some notes of mine on some devotional that I was doing, and I thought it would be applicable here, and I actually had the note on my iPad, so I pulled it up. Again, I don't know the direct source of this quote, but I believe it's Mother Teresa. I could be wrong. And this is what it says. "We need to find God, and he cannot be found in noise and restlessness. God is the friend of silence. See how nature, trees, flowers, grass grows in silence. See the stars, the moon, and the sun, how they move in silence. We need silence to be able to touch souls." One of the ancient desert fathers, I'm reading a book right now on the ancient desert fathers, taught his disciples, his followers, this: if you are silent, you will have peace wherever you live. Silence, stillness, be still. Now, I want to talk about that verse, but maybe I'm just going to throw an idea out. Right now, we hear all of this talk about social distancing. And if you look up the actual definition of social distancing, is the perceived or desired degree of remoteness between a member of one social group and the members of another, as evidenced in the level of intimacy tolerated between them. That's how it's typically used. Now, it's being used now, not really in that more technical sense. It's being used that social distancing is staying away from others in order to stop the spread of COVID-19, of this coronavirus that is spreading, this global pandemic. The only way to stop it from continuing to spread is to distance yourself from other people, staying away from other people where the virus, if you're a carrier of the virus, you can't give it to someone else. The virus can't reach them. And this involves a number of ideas, staying away from large gatherings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I was thinking about this. During the time of a global pandemic, people's lives are being turned upside down. And yes, Christians can sit there and argue with one another, and we can try to brag about how spiritual we are and condemn others for not being as spiritual as we are. Churches can sit here and try to figure out what we should do. Should we meet? Should we not meet? And then everyone can debate whatever decision a pastor makes that he's, caving to the liberal elites or he's caving to fleshly fear. We can sit there and argue and debate, but what we really need to do is call for everyone to stop. And yes, we need to practice social distancing to stop the spread of this virus. But there is one thing that we knew before the beginning of this global pandemic. Christians around the world and the church, we need a spiritual renewal. We need a spiritual revival. The American church, Christians around the world, including myself, we need a spiritual awakening. We need a spiritual renewal. We need a spiritual revival. And is it possible that God could utilize a situation where people's lives are turned completely upside down? They can't go here, they can't go there, or at least they're being asked not to go here, not to go there. They're being asked to work at home. They're being asked to do this. They're being asked. There's all of these things that's trying to make them stop going, stop doing this, stop doing that. Is that not a possible opportunity? Not just for social distancing, but for social stillness. A social silence where we all stop. We become still. We become quiet. We think about what is important. We examine our own spiritual lives. We examine the condition of our families, our churches, our marriages. Could this be a time where we are being forced by something outside of ourselves, something out of our control that's telling you, stop what you're doing, stop. Now we can stop and then fill that time of that pause with noise. We can stop and then just hop on social media and argue and complain about one another and mock these people and mock these people. Or could we just use this pause? Let's use it to stop and to grow still before God. Is it possible that we could stop the striving, stop the anxiety, stop the fear, stop the fighting, and be still? And as a result of stillness, we could truly come to know God in a way that we did not know him prior to the beginning of the stillness. If we look at this passage, Psalm 46, verse 10. Give me 1 second. My iPad timed out. If we pull up this verse and we look at this phrase, to be still, the Hebrew here for be still, we get this Hebrew word.
Strong's H7503, Rapha, Rapha.
Rapha. I can't roll my R's very good, so I'm not going to attempt it. Rapha. And if we look at the meaning of this Hebrew word, Rapha, this phrase, be still, it's kind of used to sink, to relax, sink down, let drop. It can mean to be disheartened. It can mean that. But it can mean, listen, this is very interesting, to sink, to relax, abate, to relax, withdraw, to let drop. That idea of to let drop shows up a couple of times. Abandon, relax, refrain, forsake, to let go, to let alone, to be quiet. It's a powerful concept if you put that all together. To sink down, to let it all go, to withdraw, to relax, to be still, to be quiet. Now, some of this is being forced on us by an outside force, and maybe we should see this as a blessing of God. Instead of seeing this as I'm going to sit here and complain and worry and fight with everyone and argue that this is some grand hoax and this is the government trying to take over my life. Maybe see that God is at work and that through God's sovereign hand, he's telling us all, stop, be still, let it go, sink down, withdraw, relax. That doesn't mean not to care about the global pandemic. That's not telling us to be foolish. It's telling us to use this almost forced isolation as an opportunity to be still, to be quiet, to withdraw, to let it all go. A time of stillness and quietness, listen, before God. We want to be still, but in the being still, what should flow from this time of stillness and isolation is to know God. Be still and know God, as Psalm 46:10 says. Be still and know that I am God. Now, we know that he is God theoretically. Now, remember this idea of knowing. Sometimes, Adam knew Eve and she conceived this intimate knowing. There is a knowing about, and there is truly knowing in the most intimate way. Could something come from this stillness, from this isolation, from being forced to withdraw, from this being forced to not go? All your activities are being canceled. This is being canceled. You can't go out to eat. You can't go out and hang out with friends. You can't go here. Maybe in the midst of all of the stillness, we could come to truly, truly know God. Not in an academic sense, not in a theoretical sense, but to truly come to know him in an intimate sense. And maybe the only way that can happen is being forced to be still. It's hard to get people to be still because they have to force themselves. Be still. It's almost telling you to do something. Be still. We're being forced to become still. Now we can use that time of stillness, that time of withdrawal, and fill it up with as much noise as we possibly can. But I think we are missing out. I looked up a commentary on this. Let me read it to you. Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still, the word used here, means properly to cast down, to let fall, to let hang down, then to be relaxed, slackened, especially the hands. It is also employed in the sense of not making an effort, not putting forth exertion, and then would express the idea of leaving matters with God or of being without anxiety about the issue. They say compare Exodus 14:13, where we read, stand still and see the salvation of God. In this place, the word comes to be used as a meaning that there was to be no anxiety, there was to be a calm, confiding, trustful state of mind in view of the displays of the divine presence and power. The mind was to be calm in view of the fact that God had interposed and had shown that he was able to defend his people when surrounded by dangers. And I could continue reading there, but you get the idea. It's to stop striving. It's to stop being filled with anxiety. It's to trust God. Now, you should trust God. Now, trusting God doesn't mean we act foolishness and we run out there and try to touch everything that's infected with the coronavirus and wipe our face with it to try to prove how spiritual we are. It doesn't mean that, your state government just passed a rule that there are no gatherings larger than 50 people. And you're like, well, I've got a church of 300. No one's going to tell us what to do. We're going to prove something. Maybe what we could prove is that we see this as the sovereign work of God and we tell everyone to go home, to be still, to know God. Use this time to meditate. Use this time for prayer. Use this time to open your Bible. Pastors, use this opportunity to turn on a microphone and lead your people in Bible study. Lead your people in devotional study. Use this as an opportunity to speak to them. You can say, okay, you can't come here, but let me come to you. All right, take your Bible. Let's meditate on this. Lead them to the study of Scripture. Get them. Don't argue and fight with one another. Christians, stop the arguing and fighting. Let's encourage each other. Let's talk to each other about what are you meditating on? Have you been able to use this time for a time of stillness and meditation of God? Now, I know for some people, this time may actually be very chaotic and hectic because the children cannot go to school, and maybe it's chaos at home. But find a way that in the midst of all of this, use the time to grow closer as a family. Use this time to get to know what your kids are thinking. Use this time to pray. Do something. Use this time. Could we not see this as a blessing from God? Not when I say that, please hear what I'm saying. I'm not saying people dying from a virus is a blessing. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying a global pandemic is a blessing. I'm saying that in the midst of the pain and the suffering that is causing, there is a blessing that is in it for us if we use it correctly. We step back, we withdraw, we forsake everything as we are being told to do. We do the social distancing, but then we use it as individuals to make up a social stillness, a social silence where we stop, we think, we come face to face. We come face to face with God sometimes in the middle of stillness and silence. We turn so much, listen, we fill our lives with so much noise and so much activity that we never truly come face to face with who we are, and we never come face to face with who God is. Stillness and silence. I think we need to really grasp and think about this. I think pastors need to really think about, how can I use this moment of social distancing, of isolation, to guide my flock, to guide the sheep that God has entrusted you with, to feed the flock as a pastor. You're to feed them, but you are to guide them into spiritual disciplines that can help them. Listen, everyone, use the silence and the stillness. Be still. Know God. Know Him intimately. There is no better time to intimately come into an intimate understanding of God than when you are isolated from everything. Turn everything off for a while. Use this as an opportunity. See blessing in it. I'm not saying the blessing is again, people suffering, but there can be a blessing found within this. I want to change our perspective. As I started, my perspective sitting on the side of the road in the country on a Tuesday afternoon here in West Texas, a cloudy day, chances for storms later. I don't know if we'll get them or not. Looks like the sun's coming out there right now. But when I sat on the side of that road, there was a completely different perspective. It didn't even feel like there's a problem in the world. It felt like all the problems in the world were gone. And we need to use we need to change our perspective that in a time of isolation, maybe forced upon us by an outside force, that we use it to all of us to be still and know He is God, to know God. And that God can become, think about it, God, and I'm not saying this is a 100% correct application of this, especially if it's speaking to the nations about them being still before God, but I want you to think about this. Can you imagine if Christians everywhere were forced into some kind of isolation, some kind of social distancing for, say, 4 weeks, a month, and at the end of that month, that stillness before God, that they used it spiritually, they used it and profitably, and they come to know God in an intimate way. Their knowledge of God, their relationship with God grew at an amazing level. They saw their sin. They confessed their sin. They confessed the sins of the nation. They drew closer to God because the more we see God as He is, we see ourselves as we truly are. We never see ourselves as we truly are until we see God as He truly is. the only way we truly come to know self is when we see God as he is. Knowledge of God leads to the true knowledge of self. Knowledge of God leads to the true knowledge and understanding of the world around you. Can you imagine if after a month, Christians everywhere came out of their isolation, came out of their quarantine, they came out, and when they came out, there was something different with them. There was something transformative that took place. Their minds had been renewed. They were no longer conformed to the world. They were being conformed to the image of Christ. Something spiritually significant happened. They didn't use the time to argue and fight and worry. They used the time to know God. And after that month, they came out, and God becomes exalted among the heathens because there's a transformed church. There is a transformed body of believers who were transformed in the midst of a global pandemic because they were forced to turn everything off and to sit still before God. Now, yes, some of that will require our own personal discipline because we can be socially isolated and fill the hours with meaningless noise, or we can stop. Come to know God. Now, I am not sharing this as one who has it figured out. I am not sharing this as one who is an expert. I love to fill my life with noise because one of my favorite pastimes is music. I love, in the stillness of the night, to have a pair of headphones on from midnight to 6 a.m, listening to album after album. Sometimes I have to say, you know what? Put the headphones down, turn everything off, and be still and know that he is God. Let's use the stillness and quietness of night to focus, to read scripture, to meditate. I think there is an opportunity here, but to me, the church is missing it. The church is completely missing the opportunity because our focus is so wrong. We're arguing about this and arguing about that and arguing about this and trying to act all super spiritual. Stop striving. Let your hands fall down to the side. Just let no effort. Just be still. Be still. Be still. Be still. Be quiet. Know that he is God, an intimate knowledge. You can email me your thoughts at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Let me take a drink real quick. I'm sorry. I want to apologize. There are some of the times while I was talking through all of that, I was having some problems with my voice, and I was trying to swallow, trying to drink water. And I hate when I drink water and I don't tell you that I'm drinking water because then you don't know what's going on. So I apologize on the times I did that. One more drink. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think? Do you think there's that my idea here is do you think it's crazy? Now, if you're not a Christian, I understand you think it's all, crazy. I'm talking to believers, fellow believers. What do you think? newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Share your thoughts. Let me know. Think about the world right now. No sports. All sports canceled. You know how much time many Christian men, and maybe even Christian women, but I've seen it more in the Christian men who spend their lives with sports? They're gone. They're stopped. So what are you going to do at that time? Now, they may just fill it with something else. But think about maybe there's an opportunity. Maybe the sovereign hand of God is trying to tell us all to stop. Be still. Maybe he's telling us that. Or at least there's an opportunity. Again, can you imagine a month of quarantine and isolation? We can't even meet as a church, but the church is meeting in a sense that everyone is in their home before God on their face with an open Bible, a pastor speaking to them through technology saying, let's consider this verse. Okay, this week, let's consider this verse, speaking to them, discipling them. It's done separately, but then when we all come out of our homes, there's a transformation. Wouldn't that, I know I'm being naive. I know, well, God can do whatever he wants. So maybe I'm being naive, not trusting that God could do that. I wish that this could be a time of great spiritual transformation. And we could stop worrying about politics and arguing about this, and we could just come to know God. Because the knowledge of God is what will transform us. All right, newsif@yahoo.com. Newsif@yahoo.com. I look forward to hearing from you. I really am interested in what you think in regards to this perspective. All right, everyone have a great day. Please be safe. Please be safe. Please be informed about what's going on with the global pandemic, the COVID-19. Be smart, take necessary precautions, hand washing, social distancing, follow the instructions being handed to you by the earthly authority that was appointed by God. Be smart, be wise, but let's think about this in a more spiritual way. All right, everyone have a great day. God bless.